I started off in Babylon. Imagine that. I was trained in Babylon, New York. I was trained in the oil business. I became a Christian, Pentecostal, tongue-talking, believing Christian, and I'm walking the corporate corridors of Babylon praying to get out. Because in the 1980s, anyone who, when you heard things like being in full-time ministry, that was kind of like a goal for a lot of people. I mean, they didn't want to be in part-time, they want to be in full-time, because full-time is like being in the Holy of Holies. Part-time is stuck one curtain short. So, and if you're just in the workplace, well, then everything you hear in the pulpit is about the vision of the kingdom, which always equated to, by the way, the vision of the church. So you're out, because the guys that are on the platform, the primary big guys in the church, and the guest ministry. So what do? We secretly long that someday we might be able to be like them, and we maybe sign up for a one-week mission trip to be with them. And once a year is the highlight of our life. We go to Africa or Mozambique and come back because we were ministering for a week. And it just satiates our appetite more to do that when we retire later on. Oh, I think God's coming. Then we're looking for prophecies. Anybody been in one of those prophecy hunters? I believe in prophecy, but what they'll do is if I start prophesying, people will start looking at you. They'll start staring at you for the specific purpose of pulling in that word, hooking you right out of your soul. I've had thoughts sucked out of my head right into somebody's eyeballs because they're going, prophesy. Because people want to be told that their dream of a future that they really want to have is authorized by heaven. Well, the good news is Steve Jobs never had an epiphanal experience, neither did Bill Gates. They just pursued the dream that was in them because God gave you the capacity to dream. Your job is to steward a dream, not look for one. So you've had this desire. Now here's the good news. As we're turning around, as I'm studying this thing, I went from Babylon, where I was schooled in the hardball tactics of business, consulting, sales, marketing, strategizing, and I hated it. Frankly, here's an even weirder story. I actually fasted for 3 days to get delivered from a spirit of witchcraft from the workplace because we had so much manipulation in our sales culture. That was, you know what I'm talking about? NLP is a classic example. Certain insights in human behavior can serve you if you're motivated to help people. That same insight could make you a pimp if you don't have character. So, I realized that I'm learning techniques that work. And I just made me even more wary of marketing because it's like, oh, it's so manipulative, and I know so much of the mechanism. I know the psychology behind why they use these words, why they use this sequence. So I developed an aversion to manipulation and control, which I believed was witchcraft, which I believe is significantly in the sales industry and marketplace. But it didn't occur to me that when I came out of Babylon, I left Babylon in a righteous fury. I took off, and I went to go worship the Lord. I played the piano for a church, and we played piano, and I'd sing, and I was the worship leader, and this guy from Louisiana would preach. I was pastoring for 20 years, my gosh. I mean, I went as deep into the Kool-Aid as I could. So, planted churches. I had Kim Clement every March. I had Randy Clark, Bill Johnson. This is before those guys were even like impossible to get a hold of. They were my friends. So I'd do meetings for them and do meetings for them. I'd have them in my church. And they'd always say to me, "You sure the Lord's called you to pastor?" And that always bothered me because you really have to listen to the cues in life. I thought, am I that bad that my best friends question that I'm even called? I mean, it's small enough to begin with. You have to insult me? But they saw something different, and they were kind of like pulling on me to go in that direction. But I started getting invitations to do, strangely enough, the same kind of consulting: team development, leadership coaching, executive development, organizational consulting. The same stuff I used to do in the secular world started to come from ministries. And I'll never forget the turning point. Great man, a guy named Chuck Clayton, worked with Bill Hammond at Christian International. And Chuck called me up one day. He said, our organization just merged with Dr. Hammond's, and we really feel like we need to have, how you do those profiles and things, and maybe we'd like to have our leadership team come together. And here's what I said. I said, I used to do that when I was, in the world. But since I'm in ministry, It's like almost like Peter, nothing unclean touches my lips. I don't do that anymore. And pause, and he goes, I'm not asking you to defile yourself. I'm asking you to help me.